Welcome to The Explainer. So, think about the world we live in today for a second. We're constantly told to just mind our own business, right? Look the other way, never ever tell someone else how to live their life. Actually, silence is pretty much equated with politeness now. But what if that polite silence is actually a profound moral failure? Today, we're stepping into a completely different, incredibly ancient worldview. We're going to unpack Chapter 5 of Sefer Chassidim. This is a foundational text of medieval Jewish ethics, and it lays out the sacred duty of moral admonition. It's a massive, dramatic shift from our modern mindset. It basically demands that we care enough about our neighbors to actually speak up when they lose their way. Our journey today begins with this foundational biblical text: "You shall surely rebuke your fellow," from Leviticus 19:17. Now look, when we hear the word rebuke, we instantly think of harsh judgment, pointing fingers or just acting superior. But the text we're exploring today completely reframes this whole concept. As you'll see, this is not about putting someone down. It's about lifting them up. It's framed as this profound, non-negotiable act of communal care. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our agenda. First, the command to speak up. Second, circles of moral responsibility. Then, the mirror. Correct yourself first. Fourth, speaking truth to power. And finally, the art of gentle rebuke. Starting off with Section 1, the command to speak up, the weight of silence. We're going to challenge some major assumptions right out of the gate here. In this framework, silent politeness when someone is doing wrong, that is not taking the moral high ground. In fact, it's considered a severe spiritual liability. Sefer Chassidim flat out says, "Whoever has the ability to rebuke and despairs from doing so is punished for all." Let that sink in. The text elaborates that if you see a fellow member of your community becoming lazy or transgressing even one of the 248 positive commandments or violating a negative one, and you just throw your hands up and do nothing, well, you actually become liable for their actions. Your silence literally makes you an accomplice. You are punished for all of it. Moving on to Section 2, circles of moral responsibility, escalating accountability. So now that we understand the sheer weight of silence, let's look at the spatial organization of this duty. Your moral jurisdiction expands in these escalating steps, and it's way wider than you might think. Step 1, his household. If you can speak up at home and don't, you're accountable for your family. Step 2, his city. If you've got influence in your community and you stay quiet, you are held accountable for your city. Step 3, the entire world. This is where the dramatic tension really peaks. If you have the platform to correct the world and you choose the comfort of silence, you are accountable for the entire world. This responsibility radiates outward from your living room to the entire globe. Okay, but before you feel completely crushed by the weight of the world, there's a crucial reassurance here from the prophet Ezekiel. "He shall die in his sin, but you have saved your soul." The burden isn't absolute success. The burden is the effort. The text explains that if you fulfill your duty to speak up, but the person stubbornly refuses to listen, you are totally free of punishment. In fact, you gain merit just for trying. Your job is basically to throw the life preserver. You cannot force them to grab it. Which brings us to Section 3, the mirror. Correct yourself first. Now we arrive at an absolutely crucial paradigm shift. You might be thinking you're morally obligated to go point out everyone else's flaws now. Well, not so fast. The text lays out incredibly strict prerequisites to prevent us from just becoming self-righteous busybodies. It introduces this ancient Talmudic phrase, hitkoshiasu v'koshio, which translates to adorn yourself and then adorn others. Think of it like a giant mirror. The text demands that the one rebuking must first rebuke himself and straighten his own ways. You simply cannot clean someone else's face if your own hands are covered in mud. You've got to fix your own flaws before you even dare to point out your neighbor's. There's a very strict required sequence here. First, we have the internal work, fixing your own ways. Then, the external work, guiding your fellow. Sefer Hasidim warns that you absolutely cannot skip to the external phase. If you don't do the internal work first, your fellow simply will not accept your rebuke. Let's be real. People have a highly attuned radar for hypocrisy, right? If your internal moral inventory isn't complete, your external words are just going to fall on completely deaf ears. Let's look at Section 4, speaking truth to power, challenging hierarchies. So what exactly happens when the person doing wrong is someone above you? Sefer Hasidim demands a level of moral courage that cuts straight through social standing and traditional power dynamics. Consider this really provocative question. Does a student rebuke a teacher? In medieval, highly traditional, hierarchical structures, the teacher was revered almost like royalty, so the idea of a student correcting their master seems entirely upside down, doesn't it? Yet here's the resounding, incredibly simple answer from the text. In all cases, the author points back to the biblical phrase, "you shall surely rebuke," noting the doubled language in the original Hebrew. That doubling means there are zero loopholes. The obligation applies from teacher to student, and yes, absolutely from student to teacher. And this brilliantly illustrates the absolute firmness of these rules. Do not show favoritism to the elder or the great. And even more powerfully, where there is a desecration of God's name, no honor is given even to a Torah teacher. When truth and morality are on the line, they entirely supersede human honor. Simply put, no one is too big to fail, and no one is too small to speak the truth. Finally, we reach Section 5, the art of gentle rebuke, how to save a soul. We've hit the climax of our explainer. We know we have to speak up, we know we gotta check ourselves first, and we know we can't let hierarchy stop us. But how do we actually do it? Well, Sefer Chassidim reveals a highly delicate, deeply psychological methodology required to perform this duty without causing harm. There's a stark contrast here in methodology. First, how not to rebuke. You must not do it in anger, and you absolutely must not shame someone publicly. Public shaming is just a destructive ego trip. The text warns that shaming someone publicly only creates defiance, hardens their heart, and pushes them to add even more transgressions to their sin. No way. Then there's the sacred way, constructive, gentle, and strictly in private at first. So the crucial point really is how you communicate. The text demands incredibly empathetic tactics. You have to tailor your words to the person's specific nature. If they're gentle, be gentle. If they're stubborn, you adjust accordingly. Use parables and bring proofs to turn their mind, rather than just hammering them with facts. And lastly, remember that doubled phrase, "you shall surely rebuke"? The text says this actually mandates patience. It means you must return and repeat the process if it's not accepted the first time. You don't just get to check a box, you have to truly try to reach them. Which brings us to this profound ultimate rule. The rebuke itself must be free of sin. Sefer Hasidim asks a striking question here. Could it be that someone gives a rebuke while their own face changes color with anger? The answer is a hard no. Because of the verse, "you shall not bear sin because of him," the text teaches that if you get angry and lose your temper while correcting someone, you have corrupted a sacred duty with your own sin of rage. The delivery has to be exactly as pure as the intention. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. We love to think that staying out of everyone's business makes us good, tolerant people. But based on the wisdom of Sefer Chassidim, we really have to ask, is our modern silence truly kindness? Or is it just a failure of the sacred duty to care? Next time you see someone you care about going down the wrong path, ask yourself, who are you really failing to help by remaining safely out of their business? Thanks so much for learning with me today.